I've done a bunch of these types things where I muse out loud to myself off camera, but I decided to look at myself while I do it this time because I believe this is a pleasant face that I enjoy. So, I was thinking about love and not in the romantic sense. And the reason I've been thinking about that is because I've been considering relationships. I and I'm at this stage. I was trying to say space, but this stage where I'm more aware of what's not correct. Um, like what belief when a belief when I'm tempted to do an action based on a belief from an experience or prior awareness. Uh, for instance, a very a very simple idea about um, marriage. I guess the romanticization of it. Um, I didn't think that it would be anything that I'd actually want to do again. In fact, I remember, well, I went through a couple phases. Like when I first got divorced, um, I didn't, I wanted to be married again, but it wasn't because I wanted to be married. It was more I wanted to not feel like a failure. Um, I believed at the time I really wanted to be married again, but I knew as because that relationship was just ridiculous. But nonetheless, it was my belief that I could love anyone um, well enough to help their life be better. And as I sit here and think about that, it actually fits a greater pattern I see. I've not, I don't know that I've ever really followed through or very much. That I didn't want to. That I didn't want to. Like it was very easy for me to walk away from things until I got married and had kids. And because it was marriage and children, you can't walk away from it. Um, so I don't know that I had a lot of practice prior to marriage and kids with having an idea and committing to it and working it out past a point of frustration. Meaning that, if there was an activity, it was all great and good as long as it was fun for me. When I didn't think it was fun anymore, I didn't want to do it. And I wasn't made to do it. Or encouraged to do it, rather. Um, Friend groups, fall out with friends, you just go make new friends. You know what I mean? You don't play with these kids, go play with that kid, or go sit by yourself. It was never, um, there's a way to, or even if we started playing together again, nobody talked about shit. We just started playing together. Um, but how to deal with those feelings, because there were times when I'm sure even as kids, I experienced arguments where I might have, yeah, no, mostly be, yeah, it seemed prideful, but it was mostly over dumb shit. You don't like how somebody said something, you don't like how somebody looked at you. My trigger was my baby brother and double dutch. Like, Double Dutch was more defense fights, because if somebody says, I'm fighting you, what you supposed to do, stand there and get hit? So, but my baby brother would definitely be a fight. I didn't mind throwing hands first if somebody was fucking with my brother. That would be it for me. Really, any of my family, but it wasn't very many of them, because my mom didn't want me to be all brawly, and so, unless hilarious, unless it suited her, it really wasn't a thing. But yeah, it's all very interesting. Anyway, I I was thinking about, like, where all of my ideas, like, well, where did I come up? How is it that I learned that? And therapy would probably be a quick road to get there, but therapy costs money, and right now I have to trade my time to get money, and then use that money for food. And I don't really have enough time to trade for enough money for food and therapy. So I talk to myself. I sit and think, I pray, and I listen, and I ask myself questions, which, in a sense, is what therapists do. They'll ask a question and let somebody talk to themselves until they get to their conclusions. That's what they say. The best therapist lets you come to your own answer. So, when I arrive at a conclusion, a new belief or idea, I try it out. I go live it out and go see, you know. And those started with very tiny, tiny steps, big ideas, because big emotions was tied to them. But when it's interesting. Sometimes, like, I've always been, or at least told, that I was heavy and big. When I look back on pictures of my young self, I wasn't thin, but I wasn't even as big as some of these girls they call thick now. So it's real weird how ideas change. And if I had anything to say to my young self, it would be, whoever it is that you believe you are, the best of that, don't ever doubt it, and don't ever give it away, and fuck anybody that tells you something different. Because in not being secure in that, not having those beliefs, what I thought was good of myself, affirmed, caused me to exchange it for what other people said was good of me and for me, which was usually for their benefit. And when you don't have a relationship with yourself, all you know is relationships with other people. And you need that to survive. You believe you do. At least I did. I believed I did. And when I came to a space where I didn't have a relationship I could depend on, I had no parents, because they were gone. I was not married. My children were grown, and had their own lives, and I did not have a relationship. And all I had was work, and work was not enough. Work was not enough. I was blessed to have a second job at a homeless shelter. And those people knew me from nothing, and I knew them from nothing. The one thing we both had in common, though, was an understanding of what it felt like to be invisible and unloved and uncared for. And I believe, because my residents down there, for the time I was there, were quite attached to me and me to them. But because in that we saw each other. And I think that that is the most healing thing a person can receive, is the recognition and belief of being seen, um, and understood, and without judgment, just having that need met, which meant uh, with me feeling and recognizing, like, hey, everybody treats these people like they don't exist as well, you know, or these people feel, they abjectly, physically go through things that I felt internally. So I'm not even trying to say like our beds were the same, because they weren't. But their external lives is how I felt on the inside every day. And so, in recognizing that, I would often go out of my way, for them. Um, I really did. I did a lot. But for me, it was because they were human. I felt like they deserved it. Why wouldn't they? You know? But one great thing, and this is where our environments and people we're around being reflections to us, is great, depending on what we're trying to see. Is because because I felt like they deserved it and would give it to them, it required of me to start having a better idea of what I deserved. It challenged me to begin uh, treating myself that way, because wasn't nobody else around. It wasn't my parents, it wasn't no dude, it wasn't my children. No one else was around to treat me the way I felt I deserved to be treated. So I began to treat myself that way. And that began the process of me establishing a relationship with myself. And I've come to understand that at one point, you know, I was always, as a child, I was told to be suspicious of compliments and things like that. And that I think kind of fed into my low self-esteem, because it made it seem like, well, if there was something good to be said about me, it probably was a lie, and that's hurtful. That shit is. That's sad. I don't. It's sad to remember. It doesn't. I don't feel that way currently, but I never really sat to try to articulate it. It's just, I've been so relieved to not be in that space. I've never really gone back to sit and look at it. And yeah, that was the begin. That was a great, great beginning. That was a great beginning. A lot happened, but I was still. I had a lot of distractions still then, but I could see me wanting. I could see me trying. When I look, I can see. I can see me wanting to get to this space. And And I did. And even though, like I said, this is me remembering, because I would just lay in my bed and cry if I wasn't at work. And my day job, it was a telework job. So I really could lay in the bed all day. I did not get out my bed if I wasn't going to that shelter. Or if somebody didn't need me to be out of the house. And now, this is, I worked there for a little, so it's been a span of 5 years since I started working there and now. And I only go to my bedroom when I'm going to bed. Otherwise, I am up moving around in my apartment. Um, my space is clean. I'm happy. I'm taking better care of myself. Intentionally, unintentionally, I say my weight loss has been a byproduct of joy, and stress, and not punishing myself for being unhappy and for being creative enough and brave enough, because it was a time when, and I was living someplace different, but it was a time when even just sitting downstairs in my living room felt terrifying to me, and I had no idea why. So, whatever it is that you want to do, or where you may see yourself, it might look like outside around you that it's never going to happen, or you don't even know why you ought to believe it should happen, or even why you deserve to wake up the next morning, because you think nobody would notice or care. People would, more than you imagine. And you say the things out loud that you want for yourself and believe it's possible, and don't let anything else. It might sound crazy. It might sound crazy. One of the things that I used to often throw up as a reason for not being able to do certain things or have some of the things that I wanted was money. And while I do make some more money, a little more in my day job, I haven't worked my second job in 2 years. And I live in my apartment, and I'm still able to go out. I share an apartment with my brother, so I do share expenses, but I'm still able to go out. I'm still able to help my children. I have just as much flexibility, and less money, because I'm down a whole other job. But what I have is my time, and what I've come to value, and what I've come to understand now, is that time is more precious than anything. And as long as people are forced to trade it for the things that they need most. It's like hustling backwards. It's really like hustling backwards. So I guess to make it makes more sense, I'll say whatever it is you're telling yourself you don't have time to do for yourself, stop it. It's bullshit. It's a lie, because you do. The problem is time management. The problem is resource management. Time is your greatest resource. It's probably a bunch of leaks going everywhere. It's time being spent worrying about other people's problems. It's time being spent worrying about what other people think about you. It's time being spent worrying about what if it never happens, what if you fail, what if you fuck up, what somebody else is thinking and saying, and none of that shit matters, bro. None of that matters. What you have to believe is what you need to keep you moving forward, to keep you making the next step for change in your life that you want to see. Therapy, if you can afford it, if you can find it, go. There are some big T trauma things that ought to be worked through with a professional, and those resources ought to be more widely available to the people who need them. If you cannot go to therapy, go to a park. Trees make wonderful friends. I had one where I used to live across the street from my house, and that tree is full of so much wisdom. Yeah, because change is possible. Change is possible as long as you don't settle for the sameness, get bummed out by the sameness. Change is something that happens in its own time. Time can't mean whatever it meant. So, I don't even know where this is right now versus from where I started, but that is the way things go with Marquita's head. God is good. So are you. So am I. So is life.